There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes she was made for more. More than surviving, more than pleasing everyone, more than shrinking herself to fit into places she has already outgrown. Excellence begins the moment you stop asking for permission to become who you were created to be. Most people think excellence is about perfection. It is not. Excellence is about alignment. It is the decision to live in a way where your actions match your values, your habits match your goals, and your life reflects the woman you truly want to become. A woman of excellence understands something most people never learn. Confidence is not born in public. Confidence is built in private. It is built in the early mornings when nobody is watching. It is built when you keep your word to yourself after breaking it 100 times before. Every disciplined action becomes evidence that you can trust yourself again. The world teaches women to chase attention, but excellence teaches you to PR. Protect your focus. Attention fades quickly. Character lasts. Beauty changes. Integrity remains. The strongest women are not always the loudest in the room. Often, they are the calmest. They do not need to announce their value because their presence already speaks for them. A woman of excellence knows that standards are not arrogance. Standards are self-respect. The moment you raise your standards, your entire life begins to change. You stop tolerating conversations that drain you. You stop entertaining people who constantly disrespect your peace. You stop abandoning yourself just to avoid disappointing others. Growth is painful because it requires separation. You cannot become exceptional while remaining attached to habits that keep you average. Sometimes the old version of you must disappear before the new version can emerge. That means releasing fear, releasing excuses, releasing environments that reward your weakness instead of your growth. Discipline becomes your foundation, not motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is transformational. A woman of excellence does not wait to feel ready. She moves with purpose even when emotions are unstable. She understands that feelings change daily, but standards must remain permanent. And here is what makes excellence powerful. It changes the people around you. When a woman becomes emotionally strong, mentally sharp, spiritually grounded, and deeply disciplined, she becomes impossible to ignore. Not because she demands attention, but because excellence naturally creates influence. Your voice changes when you respect yourself. Your posture changes when you know your worth. Your decisions change when your future matters more than temporary comfort. Suddenly, you no longer chase validation because purpose has become louder than insecurity. The greatest transformation happens internally first. Before success appears publicly, identity shifts privately. A woman of excellence begins to think differently. She speaks differently. She carries herself differently. She no longer asks, "Will people approve of me?" Instead, she asks, "Does this align with the woman I am becoming?" There will be lonely seasons. Seasons where growth separates you from people who no longer understand your direction. But loneliness is often the birthplace of greatness. Every powerful transformation requires isolation before elevation. Do not underestimate consistency. Small daily decisions shape extraordinary lives. Reading instead of scrolling, learning instead of complaining, healing instead of pretending, praying instead of panicking. These quiet choices build an unshakable woman over time. A woman of excellence also understands emotional control. Strength is not reacting to everything. Strength is remaining grounded when chaos surrounds you. Anyone can explode in anger. Few can remain composed under pressure. Emotional maturity is one of the highest forms of power. And finally, remember this. Excellence is not about becoming better than others. It is about becoming fully responsible for the gifts, potential, and purpose placed inside you. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress with integrity. The world does not need more women trying to imitate everyone else. It needs women who are disciplined, courageous, wise, compassionate, and fearless enough to become their authentic selves. Because when a woman chooses excellence, she changes not only her life, she changes every room she enters, every person she influences, and every generation that follows after her. Excellence begins long before applause, recognition, success, or achievement ever appear. It begins in identity. The strongest women in the world are not driven only by what they accomplish. They are driven by who they decide to become. Achievement can be temporary. Identity becomes permanent. When a woman builds her life around identity instead of validation, she becomes unstoppable. Because her confidence no longer depends on outside approval. Most people spend their lives chasing outcomes while ignoring the foundation beneath those outcomes. They want success without transformation. They want respect without discipline. They want confidence without self-control. But excellence is never built from the outside in. It is built from the inside out. The woman who knows who she is moves differently. She speaks differently. She carries herself differently even before results begin to appear. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes habits. Habits shape destiny. The reason many people constantly return to old patterns is because they try to change actions without changing identity first. They say they want growth, but internally they still identify with fear, insecurity, weakness, distraction, or self-doubt. Real transformation happens when a woman no longer sees herself as someone trying to become disciplined, but as someone who already values discipline as part of. For her identity, a woman of excellence understands that achievement can disappear overnight. Titles can vanish, money can be lost, attention can fade, but identity remains. That is why truly powerful women never build their lives on unstable foundations. They build character before reputation. They build integrity before influence. They build emotional strength before public recognition, because they understand that what is built internally can survive external pressure. The world constantly pressures women to define themselves through appearance, attention, relationships, or accomplishments. But excellence demands something deeper. It demands self-awareness. It demands the courage to ask difficult questions. Who are you when nobody is watching? Who are you when life becomes uncomfortable? Who are you when failure appears? Identity is revealed in difficult moments, not easy ones. Strong women do not wait for the world to tell them their value. They decide their value first. That decides. Scion changes everything. It changes standards. It changes boundaries. It changes daily habits. When a woman identifies herself as someone worthy of growth, she stops tolerating environments that destroy her peace. She stops speaking negatively about herself. She stops settling for temporary comfort that damages her future. Excellence also requires alignment between identity and action. Many people speak positively about themselves but continue living in contradiction. A woman cannot claim strength while constantly surrendering to excuses. She cannot claim discipline while remaining controlled by distraction. Identity is proven through repeated action. Every promise you keep to yourself strengthens self-respect. Every disciplined choice reinforces the woman you are becoming. There will always be pressure to imitate others. Social media encourages comparison. Society rewards performance. But identity-centered women refuse to become copies. They understand that excellence grows through authenticity, not imitation. The moment a woman becomes comfortable with her purpose, her energy changes completely. She no longer competes for attention because she becomes focused on contribution, growth, and impact. One of the most powerful shifts happens when achievement stops being the source of self-worth. Many people collapse emotionally after failure because their entire identity was attached to results. But women rooted in identity remain grounded even during difficult seasons. Failure becomes feedback instead of destruction. Rejection becomes redirection instead of insecurity. Delays become preparation instead of defeat. Identity also influences relationships. A woman who respects herself deeply attracts healthier environments because she no longer negotiates her standards for acceptance. Excellence teaches a woman that loneliness is sometimes healthier than constant disrespect. Peace becomes more valuable than approval. Purpose becomes more important than popularity. The truth is that achievement without identity creates exhaustion. Many people achieve success publicly while feeling empty privately because they never develop themselves internally. But when identity becomes the foundation, success gains meaning. Discipline gains purpose. Growth becomes sustainable. Excellence begins the moment a woman stops asking, "What can I achieve?" and starts asking, "Who must I become?" That single shift changes the direction of an entire life. Confidence is not created in front of crowds, cameras, applause, or recognition. True confidence is built in private moments where nobody is watching and nobody is rewarding your effort. It is built through the promises you keep to yourself when quitting would be easier. The strongest women are not confident because life has always been easy for them. They are confident because they learned how to trust themselves through consistent action. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence appears first and action follows after. In reality, action creates confidence. Every time a woman does what she said she would do, even when tired, distracted, emotional, or discouraged, she sends a message to herself that she is dependable. That internal trust becomes the foundation of confidence. Self-doubt grows when promises are repeatedly broken. Every unfinished goal, every excuse, every delay weakens the relationship a person has with themselves. Over time, many women begin questioning their own ability because they no longer trust their own words. They speak about change but remain trapped in the same habits. They dream about growth but continue choosing comfort over discipline. Confidence cannot survive where self-betrayal becomes a lifestyle. A woman of excellence understands that private discipline creates public strength.
The early mornings matter.
The quiet sacrifices matter. The nights spent improving yourself instead of wasting time matter. Knob. Adi may celebrate those moments immediately, but those invisible decisions slowly build an unshakable identity. The woman who trains herself privately develops emotional stability publicly. Confidence is not loud. It does not constantly seek attention or validation. Insecure people often need the world to reassure them because they lack internal certainty. But a woman who keeps promises to herself develops calm confidence. She no longer needs approval from everyone because she already respects herself. Her confidence becomes rooted in evidence instead of opinion. Every small promise matters more than most people realize. Waking up when you plan to wake up matters. Finishing what you started matters. Protecting your boundaries matters. Speaking respectfully to yourself matters. Keeping your standards even when nobody would notice if you lowered them matters. These actions seem small individually, but together they shape identity. Many women wait for a major achievement before believing in themselves. They think confidence will appear after success, after recognition, after transformation. But confidence grows long before results become visible. It grows during repetition. It grows through consistency. It grows through the quiet moments where discipline becomes stronger than emotion. The reason private promises are so powerful is because they reveal character. Public behavior can sometimes be performance. Private behavior reveals truth. The woman who remains disciplined alone possesses a strength that external pressure cannot easily destroy. She understands that integrity means behaving the same way in private as in public. There will be days where motivation disappears completely, days where progress feels invisible, days where exhaustion tries to convince you that your effort is pointless. But confidence is built exactly in those moments. When a woman continues honoring her commitments despite emotional stance, she becomes mentally stronger. She learns that feelings do not have to control behavior. Broken confidence is often repaired slowly, not instantly. Many women carry disappointment from years of inconsistency, fear, or hesitation. But rebuilding trust with yourself happens one promise at a time, one disciplined morning, one completed task, one courageous decision, one moment where you refuse to return to old excuses. Over time, those moments create momentum, and momentum changes identity. A woman who trusts herself walks differently through life. She no longer constantly second-guesses every decision. She no longer depends entirely on external encouragement. She becomes emotionally grounded because her confidence is connected to personal discipline rather than temporary praise. Private victories always appear publicly eventually. The woman who consistently develops herself behind closed doors eventually radiates strength in every environment she enters. People notice her calmness. They notice her focus. They notice her resilience. What they are seeing is not luck or natural talent. They are witnessing the result of promises honored repeatedly over time. Confidence also creates freedom. When a woman trusts herself, fear loses power over her decisions. She becomes more willing to take risks, speak honestly, pursue growth, and walk away from situations that no longer align with her values. Internal trust removes the need to constantly seek permission from others. The greatest relationship a woman will ever build is the relationship she has with herself. When she becomes someone who keeps her word consistently, her entire life changes. Because confidence is not gifted by the world. It is earned privately through discipline, consistency, and self-respect repeated daily until belief becomes identity. Discipline creates freedom, while excuses create limits. Most people spend their lives believing the opposite. They think discipline removes freedom because it requires. UIers sacrifice structure, consistency, and self-control. They see discipline as restriction. But the truth is that discipline is what creates options, stability, confidence, and long-term peace. Excuses may feel comfortable in the moment, but over time they slowly build invisible prisons around a person's potential. A woman of excellence understands that every choice either strengthens her future or weakens it. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the ability to choose what matters most over what feels easiest right now. The woman who masters discipline eventually gains freedom from chaos, regret, emotional instability, and constant disappointment. Excuses always sound convincing in the beginning. They protect comfort, they protect fear, they protect old habits. A woman can always find reasons to delay growth. She can blame circumstances, timing, pressure, pain, or insecurity. But every excuse accepted repeatedly becomes a limitation that controls her future. Over time, excuses do not simply stop progress. They shape identity. The dangerous thing about excuses is that they often feel harmless at first. One missed opportunity, one delayed decision, one moment of avoiding responsibility. But repeated enough times, those small choices begin creating a mindset where avoidance becomes normal. A woman starts believing she is incapable, unlucky, or powerless, when in reality she has simply practiced excuses more than discipline. Discipline changes that pattern completely. Discipline teaches a woman that feelings do not have to control behavior. She learns how to move forward even when motivation disappears. She learns how to remain focused when distractions increase. She learns how to continue growing even during difficult seasons. That consistency builds emotional strength that excuses can never provide. Freedom is earned through self-control. Financial freedom comes through disciplined decisions. Emotional freedom comes through disciplined thinking. Physical strength comes through disciplined habits. Mental clarity comes through disciplined focus. Strong relationships are built through disciplined communication and loyalty. Every meaningful form of freedom requires discipline first. Many people want the rewards of discipline without the process of discipline itself. They want confidence without preparation, success without sacrifice, peace without boundaries, growth without discomfort. But life does not work that way. The quality of a woman's future is often hidden inside the quality of her daily habits. A disciplined woman becomes powerful because she stops negotiating with every emotion she feels. She understands that emotions change constantly, but principles must remain stable. Some days she will feel inspired. Other days she will feel exhausted, uncertain, or discouraged. Discipline allows her to continue moving even when emotions are unreliable. Excuses create limits because they remove responsibility. The moment a woman constantly blames external circumstances for her situation, she gives away her power to change it. Responsibility may feel heavy at first, but it is also empowering, because once a woman accepts responsibility for her choices, she also gains the ability to transform her life. Discipline also protects peace. A woman with structure in her life experiences less chaos internally. She manages her time better, she protects her energy better, she avoids many unnecessary problems because disciplined thinking creates wiser decisions. Excuses, on the other hand, often create temporary comfort followed by long-term stress. The strongest women are not always the most talented. Often they are simply the most consistent. They continue improving while others continue procrastinating. They continue learning while others continue complaining. They continue showing up while others wait for perfect conditions. Over time, consistency separates extraordinary women from average ones. Discipline also creates confidence. Every promise a woman keeps to herself strengthens self-trust. Every difficult decision completed builds resilience. Every distraction resisted increases mental strength. Slowly, discipline transforms identity. A woman stops seeing herself as weak, overwhelmed, or inconsistent. She begins seeing herself as capable, dependable, and focused. There will always be moments where excuses seem easier. Comfort will always invite you to stay the same. But growth belongs to women who can lead themselves through discomfort without surrendering to temporary emotions. Real freedom is not doing whatever feels easy in the moment. Real freedom is having control over your decisions, habits, mindset, and direction in life. A disciplined woman eventually experiences something excuses never provide: peace. The peace of knowing she can rely on herself. The peace of knowing her life is guided by purpose instead of impulse. The peace of knowing she is becoming stronger with every difficult choice she refuses to avoid. A powerful woman protects her mind, energy, and standards because she understands that everything valuable in life can be damaged through careless access. She knows that not everyone deserves unlimited entry into her thoughts, emotions, attention, or peace. Strength is not only about what a woman achieves. Strength is also about what she refuses to tolerate. The moment a woman begins protecting her inner world, her entire life starts changing. Most people underestimate how much their environment shapes them. Conversations influence thinking. Relationships influence confidence. Habits influence emotional stability. A woman of excellence understands that protecting her mind is not selfish. It is necessary. She becomes intentional about what she watches, what she listens to, who she spends time with, and what voices she allows. With strength to shape her identity, the human mind absorbs whatever it experiences repeatedly. Constant negativity creates fear. Constant comparison creates insecurity. Constant drama creates emotional exhaustion. A powerful woman recognizes when certain environments are slowly draining her strength. She does not continue entertaining things that destroy her focus, confidence, or peace simply because others expect her to. Mental protection requires discipline. It means learning how to disconnect from noise that constantly demands attention. The modern world rewards distraction. Social media competes for focus every second. Opinions come from everywhere. Pressure never seems to stop. But a strong woman understands that clarity is impossible when the mind is overcrowded. She protects her mental space because she knows confused thinking eventually produces confused decisions. A woman who protects her energy also becomes careful with relationships. Not everyone who enters your life arrives with good intentions. Some people only bring chaos, manipulation, jealousy, or emotional instability. Others constantly take without giving anything healthy in return. Powerful women recognize when relationships become emotionally expensive. They stop trying to save people at the cost of losing themselves. Energy is valuable because it determines what a woman can build, create, heal, and overcome. Constant emotional exhaustion weakens confidence, focus, and motivation. That is why emotionally intelligent women learn how to set boundaries without guilt. They understand that saying no is sometimes an act of wisdom, not cruelty. Protecting peace often requires disappointing people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Many women are taught to constantly prioritize everyone else while neglecting themselves. Over time, this creates burnout, resentment, and emotional emptiness. But a woman of excellence realizes she cannot pour endlessly into others while remaining empty internally. She understands the importance of rest, reflection, healing, and personal growth. Protecting energy means refusing to abandon yourself while trying to satisfy everyone around you. Standards are another form of protection. Standards determine what a woman accepts into her life and what she refuses to compromise. Weak standards create painful cycles. Low standards invite disrespect. A woman who lacks standards often tolerates situations that slowly damage her confidence and self-worth. But a powerful woman decides that temporary loneliness is better than constant disrespect. Standards are not about perfection. They are about alignment. A woman of excellence no longer accepts relationships that consistently drain her peace. She no longer entertains dishonesty, inconsistency, manipulation, or emotional confusion. She understands that standards protect her future. Every decision either moves her closer to the woman she wants to become or further away from her purpose. Powerful women are often misunderstood because boundaries make insecure people uncomfortable. The moment a woman stops over-explaining herself, stops tolerating disrespect, and stops lowering her standards for acceptance, some people will call her difficult. But maturity teaches her that protecting her peace matters more than being liked by everyone. Protecting the mind also means protecting self-talk. Many women speak to themselves with unnecessary harshness. They replay failures constantly. They magnify insecurities. They criticize themselves in ways they would never criticize someone they love. A strong woman learns how to replace destructive thoughts with truth, growth, and discipline. She understands that the voice inside her mind influences every area of her life. A powerful woman also protects her future by being selective with opportunities, commitments, and distractions. She no longer says yes to everything. She understands that every unnecessary distraction steals time from purpose. Focus becomes part of her identity. She becomes intentional with where she invests emotional, mental, and spiritual energy. Over time, protection creates transformation. A woman who guards her peace develops emotional stability. A woman who protects her standards develops self-respect. A woman who protects her mind develops clarity and wisdom. She becomes calmer, stronger, wiser, and more grounded because she no longer allows chaos unlimited access to her life. Real power is not found in controlling others. Real power is found in controlling what enters your mind, drains your energy, and lowers your standards. That level of self-awareness changes the direction of an entire life. Growth requires leaving behind old habits and old thinking because transformation cannot happen while a person remains emotionally attached to the behaviors that created their limitations in the first place. Every woman says she wants growth, but very few are willing to release the comfort zones, accept, says, patterns, and mindsets that keep them trapped. Real growth is uncomfortable because it demands separation from the old version of yourself. A woman of excellence eventually realizes that her future cannot be built with the same thinking that created her current struggles. New levels of life require new levels of discipline, awareness, maturity, and responsibility. The habits that once felt normal begin to feel destructive. The conversations that once entertained her begin to feel empty. The mindset that once protected her starts limiting her. Old habits are dangerous because they create familiarity. Even unhealthy patterns can feel comfortable when repeated long enough. Procrastination becomes routine. Negative thinking becomes automatic. Settling becomes normal. Many women stay emotionally connected to habits that quietly destroy their confidence simply because those habits feel familiar. But growth always begins when comfort is challenged. The strongest women understand that. Habits shape identity. Every repeated behavior becomes evidence of who a woman believes she is. If she constantly delays action, she reinforces doubt. If she repeatedly breaks promises to herself, she weakens self-trust. If she consistently chooses temporary comfort over long-term purpose, she slowly builds a life controlled by limitations instead of potential. Growth requires awareness first. A woman cannot change patterns she refuses to acknowledge. Many people spend years blaming circumstances while refusing to confront the habits damaging their future. But powerful women become honest with themselves. They stop making excuses for behaviors that no longer align with the woman they want to become. Old thinking must also be replaced. Many women carry limiting beliefs formed through fear, rejection, failure, criticism, or painful experiences. Over time, those thoughts become internal rules that shape every decision. Some begin believing they are incapable of change. Others believe they are unworthy of peace, success, or healthy relationships. These hidden beliefs quietly influence confidence, standards, and choices. A woman of excellence understands that thoughts create direction. Negative thinking eventually creates negative behavior. Fearful thinking creates hesitation. Weak thinking creates weak decisions. That is why mental transformation becomes essential for personal growth. She learns to challenge destructive beliefs instead of automatically obeying them. Growth often requires painful separation. Sometimes a woman must leave behind environments that encourage mediocrity. Sometimes she must distance herself from people who constantly pull her back into old patterns. Sometimes she must walk away from habits that once helped her survive, but no longer help her grow. These decisions are difficult because growth often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. The process of growth also exposes emotional attachments to comfort. Human nature nadir. Ally resists change because change creates uncertainty. The old version of you always wants to stay alive. It wants familiar routines, familiar excuses, familiar fears, and familiar distractions. But transformation requires discipline strong enough to challenge emotional resistance. A powerful woman stops asking whether growth feels comfortable. Instead, she asks whether her current habits align with her future. That single shift changes everything. She becomes more intentional with her time, energy, focus, and relationships. She realizes that every decision either strengthens the woman she is becoming or strengthens the habits she is trying to leave behind. Growth also demands humility. A woman cannot improve while believing she already knows everything. Excellence requires the willingness to learn, reflect, listen, and evolve. Strong women are not afraid to admit weakness because awareness becomes the starting point for transformation. Pride protects limitation. Humility creates opportunity. Opportunity for change. One of the hardest parts of growth is accepting that progress takes time. Many women become discouraged because transformation is slower than expected. But lasting change is built through consistency, not speed. Every disciplined action matters. Every healthier decision matters. Every moment of choosing growth over comfort matters. Small changes repeated consistently eventually reshape identity completely. The beautiful thing about growth is that it changes how a woman sees herself. She becomes mentally stronger because she has overcome resistance repeatedly. She becomes emotionally wiser because she has learned from mistakes instead of remaining trapped inside them. She becomes more confident because she no longer fears change. Old habits may feel safe, but they also create limitations. Old thinking may feel familiar, but it can quietly prevent greatness. A woman of excellence understands that growth always costs something. It costs comfort. It costs old identities that no longer serve her purpose. But what she gains in return is far greater: freedom, clarity, confidence, strength, and the ability to become the woman she was truly meant to be. True beauty is revealed through character and consistency, because external appearance may capture attention for a moment, but character determines the lasting impact a woman leaves on the world. The modern world constantly teaches women to focus on image, validation, and perfection. It measures beauty through filters, trends, and public approval. But real beauty has always been deeper than appearance. Real beauty is revealed in the way a woman lives, speaks, treats others, handles pressure, and remains consistent with her values even when nobody is watching. A woman of excellence understands that physical beauty alone cannot sustain respect, trust, peace, or influence. Appearance may open doors temporarily, but character determines whether those doors remain open. The women who leave the deepest impact on others are rarely remembered only for how they looked. They are remembered for their presence, wisdom, kindness, discipline, courage, and emotional strength. Character is revealed through choices made repeatedly over time. It is easy to appear impressive for a short moment. Consistency is what separates authenticity from performance. A beautiful character is formed when a woman repeatedly chooses integrity over convenience, honesty over manipulation, patience over emotional chaos, and discipline over distraction. The world often rewards temporary attention, but consistency creates lasting influence. Many people know how to appear confident occasionally. Few know how to remain grounded consistently. Many people know how to act kind when life is easy. Few continue showing grace during difficult seasons. True beauty becomes visible when a woman remains strong in private as well as public. Character also reveals emotional maturity, a powerful woe. Man does not allow emotions to control every decision. She learns how to respond with wisdom instead of reacting impulsively. She understands that emotional control is not weakness, it is strength. The ability to remain calm under pressure, respectful during disagreement, and focused during difficulty reveals inner beauty far greater than physical appearance ever could. Consistency builds trust because people begin seeing reliability instead of unpredictability. A woman who consistently honors her word develops credibility naturally. Her actions align with her values. Her behavior remains stable regardless of circumstances. Over time, people feel peace around women who are emotionally grounded because consistency creates security. Many women spend years trying to become more attractive externally while neglecting the qualities that truly make a woman unforgettable internally. Beauty without kindness becomes empty. Beauty without discipline becomes fragile. Beauty without humility becomes arrogance. But when strong character is combined with wisdom, grace, integrity, and consistency, a woman develops a presence that cannot be easily forgotten. A woman of excellence also understands that character is tested during uncomfortable moments. Anyone can appear graceful when life feels easy. Real character is revealed during stress, disappointment, criticism, rejection, and pressure. Difficult seasons expose what truly exists inside a person. Women with strong character do not become perfect during hard times, but they remain committed to growth instead of surrendering to bitterness or negativity. Consistency requires discipline because emotions change daily. Some days motivation disappears. Some days exhaustion becomes overwhelming. Some days life feels unfair. But a woman of excellence understands that values should not depend entirely on emotions. She continues choosing growth, respect, integrity, and self-control even when feelings fluctuate. True beauty is also considered connected to how a woman makes others feel. Some people are physically attractive but emotionally draining. Others radiate peace, warmth, wisdom, and encouragement that naturally draws people toward them. Presence matters more than perfection. A woman who uplifts others, speaks with kindness, and carries herself with dignity creates a beauty that becomes stronger over time rather than weaker. Character also protects a woman from becoming controlled by public opinion. Women rooted only in external validation constantly change themselves to gain approval. But women rooted in strong values remain stable even when trends, opinions, or environments shift around them. Their confidence comes from identity instead of attention. One of the most attractive qualities in any woman is authenticity, the courage to live honestly, the courage to remain true to values, the courage to act with integrity even when compromise would be easier. Authentic women create trust because people sense consistency between their words and actions. A woman of true beauty also understands that growth never stops. She continues learning, healing, improving, and developing herself internally. She becomes wiser through experience instead of harder through pain. She becomes more compassionate without becoming weak. She becomes stronger without losing kindness. Physical beauty changes with time. Trends disappear, attention fades, but character deepens, consistency strengthens, integrity grows more valuable. The women who truly transform the lives around them are not remembered because they looked perfect. They are remembered because their presence reflected wisdom, grace, resilience, discipline, and love consistently over time. Silence, patience, and emotional control are forms of strength because true power is not always loud, aggressive, or attention-seeking. The world often mistakes noise for confidence and emotional reactions for honesty. But a woman of excellence understands that strength is revealed through self-control, stability, and the ability to remain grounded under pressure. Anyone can react emotionally in difficult moments. Few people have the discipline to remain calm, patient, and composed when life becomes uncomfortable. Silence is powerful because it creates clarity. In a world filled with constant noise, opinions, arguments, and distractions, silence allows a woman to think deeply before she speaks or acts. Many people destroy opportunities, relationships, and peace because they speak from emotion instead of wisdom. A strong woman learns that not every thought requires expression and not every situation deserves a reaction. Silence also reveals confidence. Insecure people often feel the need to constantly prove themselves, explain themselves, or defend themselves. But emotionally mature women understand that confidence does not need constant validation. They know who they are without announcing it repeatedly. Their energy speaks before their words do. Their actions speak louder than unnecessary explanations ever could. A woman who values silence also protects her peace. She stops participating in meaningless drama, pointless arguments, and emotional chaos that drains her focus. She realizes that not every battle deserves her attention. Some conflicts are distractions designed to pull her away from growth. Wisdom teaches her when to speak and when to remain silent. Patience is another form of strength because growth rarely happens instantly. Modern culture encourages immediate gratification. People want fast success, fast healing, fast results, and fast recognition. But meaningful transformation requires time. A powerful woman understands that patience is not passive waiting. Patience is disciplined trust during seasons where progress feels invisible. Patience becomes especially important during difficult moments. Many women abandon goals too early because results take longer than expected. They become discouraged when success is not immediate. But emotionally strong women continue moving forward even when visible rewards have not yet appeared. They understand that consistency eventually produces transformation. A patient woman also handles relationships differently. She does not rush to force connections, demand attention, or seek validation from everyone around her. She understands that healthy relationships are built through trust, honesty, respect, and time. Patience allows her to observe people clearly before giving them deep access to her emotions and energy. Emotional control may be one of the highest forms of strength because emotions influence decisions, relationships, and identity. A woman without emotional control becomes controlled by every circumstance around her. Her mood determines her actions. Her anger controls her words. Her fear controls her choices. But a disciplined woman learns how to lead herself even during emotional pressure. Emotional control does not mean suppressing feelings or pretending emotions do not exist. It means refusing to allow emotions to dominate wisdom. A woman of excellence feels deeply, but she responds thoughtfully. She creates space between emotion and reaction. That space protects her from decisions she may later regret. One emotional reaction can damage years of trust. One impulsive decision can create unnecessary pain. One uncontrolled moment can weaken opportunities and relationships. That is why emotional discipline becomes so valuable. A powerful woman understands that self-control protects both her peace and her future. Silence, patience, and emotional control also create resilience. Life will always contain disappointment, criticism, delays, rejection, and uncertainty. Women who depend entirely on emotions often collapse during difficult seasons because they lack internal stability. But emotionally grounded women remain steady even when life becomes unpredictable. They may feel pain, frustration, or sadness, but they do not allow temporary emotions to permanently control their direction. These qualities also create wisdom. Silence allows observation. Patience allows understanding. Emotional control allows better decision-making. Together, they create maturity that many people never develop. Strong women do not waste energy reacting to everything around them because they understand that peace is more valuable than proving themselves right in every situation. A woman who masters emotional discipline becomes difficult to manipulate. She no longer reacts impulsively to criticism, pressure, or negativity. She becomes harder to distract because her mind remains focused. She becomes harder to break because her emotions are no longer easily controlled by external circumstances. There is also dignity and composure. Calmness under pressure creates respect naturally. Women who remain graceful during stressful situations often carry a quiet authority that louder personalities cannot imitate. Their strength feels stable instead of performative. People trust emotionally controlled women because consistency creates safety. The strongest women are not always the most visible. Sometimes they are the women who remain disciplined in silence, patient during waiting seasons, and emotionally grounded during storms. Their strength is not built on noise or attention. It is built on self-mastery, and self-mastery creates a level of peace, confidence, and resilience that external circumstances cannot easily destroy. Excellence is choosing purpose over temporary attention, because attention can make a woman feel important for a moment, but purpose gives her life direction, meaning, and lasting impact. The modern world constantly encourages people to chase visibility instead of substance. Social media rewards performance. Culture rewards trends. Many people become addicted to approval, validation, and recognition from strangers while neglecting the deeper work required. Hired to build character, discipline, and purpose. But a woman of excellence understands that attention fades quickly, while purpose continues shaping lives long after applause disappears. Temporary attention is dangerous because it often creates dependency. A woman who builds her confidence entirely on external validation becomes emotionally unstable whenever approval disappears. She begins adjusting her identity to fit what others want to see instead of remaining loyal to who she truly is. Over time, she loses clarity because she becomes more focused on being noticed than becoming meaningful. Purpose changes that completely. Purpose gives a woman stability because her decisions are no longer controlled by trends, opinions, or public reactions. She wakes up with direction. She understands what matters most to her values, growth, and future. Instead of constantly asking, "How can I gain attention?" she begins asking, "How can I become valuable?" A woman driven by purpose becomes different from the crowd because she stops seeking instant gratification. She understands that meaningful growth often happens quietly. The strongest transformations usually occur in private long before the world notices them publicly. Purpose teaches her patience because she realizes that lasting success requires consistency, sacrifice, and discipline. Attention often encourages performance instead of authenticity. Many people create versions of themselves designed only to impress others. They hide insecurity behind appearance. They hide emptiness behind popularity. They hide lack of direction behind constant activity. But purpose-centered women no longer feel pressure to perform constantly because their worth is rooted in something deeper than public approval. Purpose also creates focus. A distracted woman struggles to build a meaningful life because her energy becomes scattered across unnecessary opinions, comparisons, drama, and distractions. But a woman of excellence protects her focus carefully. She understands that every distraction steals time from her future. Every moment wasted seeking validation delays growth that could strengthen her mind, character, and impact. Choosing purpose often requires sacrifice. It means saying no to temporary pleasures that conflict with long-term goals. It means walking away from environments that reward superficial behavior. It means resisting the pressure to constantly compete for attention. These choices are difficult because temporary attention feels immediately rewarding, while purpose often requires delayed gratification. A powerful woman understands that being admired is not the same as being fulfilled. Many people appear successful publicly while feeling empty privately because they built their identity around image instead of meaning. But women connected to purpose experience a different kind of confidence. Their peace does not disappear when attention shifts elsewhere because our identity was never dependent on visibility in the first place. Purpose also influences relationships. A woman who values purpose becomes more selective with the people she allows into her life. She no longer surrounds herself with people who constantly distract her from growth, encourage unhealthy habits, or drain her emotional energy. She seeks environments that support wisdom, discipline, and personal development. Temporary attention creates emotional instability because it constantly changes. One moment people praise you, another moment they criticize you. Public opinion is unpredictable and temporary. Women who chase attention often live emotionally exhausted lives because they constantly try to maintain approval from everyone around them. But purpose-centered women become emotionally grounded because they stop allowing public reactions to define their identity. A woman focused on purpose also develops resilience. She becomes willing to continue growing even when recognition is absent. She learns how to remain disciplined during lonely seasons. She understands that purpose sometimes requires quiet work before visible rewards appear. That level of internal strength separates extraordinary women from those controlled by immediate validation. Purpose creates depth. Attention creates surface-level satisfaction. A purposeful woman builds wisdom, integrity, emotional maturity, and character over time. Her influence becomes lasting because it is connected to substance instead of performance. People trust women who live with purpose because their actions reflect consistency instead of constant image management. One of the greatest forms of freedom is no longer needing everyone's attention to feel valuable. A woman of excellence becomes secure enough to work quietly, grow privately, and remain patient during seasons where recognition feels absent. She understands that real success is not measured by how many people notice her, but by the quality of the life she builds and the impact she leaves behind. Excellence will always require choosing long-term meaning over short-term validation. Attention may satisfy the ego temporarily, but purpose strengthens the soul, sharpens character, and creates a life that continues inspiring others long after temporary applause disappears. The way you speak to yourself shapes your future because the voice you hear most often in life is your own. Every woman carries an internal conversation that influences her confidence, decisions, habits, emotions, and direction. Long before success or failure appears externally, it develops internally through repeated thoughts and words. A woman of excellence understands that her inner dialogue is either building her strength or slowly weakening her potential every single day. Many women underestimate the power of self-talk. They speak to themselves with constant criticism, doubt, fear, and negativity without realizing how deeply those words shape identity. Over time, repeated negative thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs influence behavior. A woman who constantly tells herself she is incapable eventually stops taking courageous action. A woman who repeatedly focuses on weakness eventually struggles to recognize her own value. The mind believes what it hears repeatedly. That is why destructive self-talk becomes dangerous. Some women replay old failures so often that they begin defining themselves by past mistakes instead of future possibilities. Others magnify insecurities until fear controls every important decision. Eventually, internal negativity creates emotional exhaustion because the mind was never designed to survive constant self-attack. A powerful woman learns how to become aware of the language she uses internally. She pays attention to how she responds to setbacks, pressure, mistakes, and challenges. She understands that self-awareness is necessary for transformation. Many people spend years trying to improve externally while ignoring the destructive conversations happening privately inside their own minds. The way a woman speaks to herself also affects discipline. Women who constantly say, "I can never stay consistent," often reinforce inconsistency without realizing it. Women who repeatedly say, "I always fail," begin approaching life with defeat already planted in their thinking. Thoughts influence emotions, and emotions influence actions. That is why mental language matters so deeply. A woman of excellence does not ignore reality or pretend life is easy. Positive self-talk is not about denial. It is about truth, growth, and resilience. She learns how to replace destructive thinking with language that strengthens responsibility and confidence. Instead of focusing entirely on limitations, she focuses on growth. Instead of defining herself by mistakes, she learns from them. Self-respect begins internally before it appears externally. The woman who constantly speaks negatively about herself often struggles to establish healthy standards because deep inside she no longer believes she deserves better. But when a woman changes the way she speaks to herself, her identity begins changing too. She starts making stronger decisions because her internal world becomes stronger. Words also influence emotional resilience. Difficult seasons are part of life. Failure, rejection, disappointment, and uncertainty happen to everyone. But the internal response to those moments often determines whether a woman grows stronger or becomes trapped in discouragement. A woman with disciplined self-talk learns how to encourage herself during difficult moments instead of emotionally destroying herself. Many women are kinder to strangers than they are to themselves. They offer patience, encouragement, and understanding to others while privately speaking to themselves with cruelty. But a woman of excellence realizes that internal peace requires internal respect. She begins treating her own mind like a place worth protecting rather than a battlefield filled with constant negativity. Self-talk also shapes confidence. Confidence is not created by perfection. It is built through repeated evidence that a woman can trust herself, grow, adapt, and overcome challenges. The language she uses internally either strengthens that trust or weakens it. Encouraging thoughts create courage. Fearful thoughts create hesitation. Disciplined thinking creates disciplined action. The environment around a woman matters, but the environment inside her mind matters even more. A woman can have opportunities, support, and talent, but if her internal voice constantly tells her she is not enough, she may continue sabotaging her own growth unconsciously. That is why mental discipline becomes essential for personal transformation. Changing self-talk also requires consistency. Negative thinking. NG patterns built over years rarely disappear overnight. A woman must intentionally challenge limiting beliefs repeatedly. She must learn how to recognize destructive thoughts before automatically accepting them as truth. Over time, healthier thinking creates emotional stability and stronger self-belief. A strong woman understands that words carry power even when spoken silently inside the mind. The internal conversations repeated daily eventually influence posture, energy, choices, relationships, and direction. That is why mentally disciplined women become careful with what they allow themselves to believe repeatedly. The future a woman builds is deeply connected to the identity she develops internally. If she constantly speaks defeat into her own mind, fear eventually controls her life. But when she trains herself to think with wisdom, strength, discipline, and hope, her actions begin aligning with growth instead of limitation. The way a woman speaks to herself becomes the foundation, ion of the life she eventually creates. Her words shape belief, belief shapes action, action shapes destiny. Long before the world sees transformation externally, it begins quietly inside the conversations she has with herself every single day. Leadership starts with self-respect and personal responsibility because no woman can lead others effectively while constantly neglecting herself internally. True leadership is not built on titles, popularity, status, or control. It is built on character, discipline, integrity, and the ability to take ownership of one's life. A woman of excellence understands that before she can influence others positively, she must first learn how to lead herself. Self-respect becomes the foundation of leadership because the way a woman sees herself influences every decision she makes. Women who lack self-respect often tolerate unhealthy environments, weak boundaries, destructive habits, and relationships that slowly damage their confidence. But a strong woman, understands her value deeply enough to protect her peace, standards, and future. She no longer accepts treatment that contradicts the woman she is becoming. A woman with self-respect carries herself differently. She speaks with intention. She protects her integrity. She honors her commitments. She does not constantly seek approval because her confidence comes from internal alignment rather than external validation. People naturally trust women who respect themselves because self-respect creates consistency between words and actions. Leadership also requires personal responsibility. Many people spend years blaming circumstances, other people, timing, or past experiences for their lack of growth. While pain and difficulty are real, constantly avoiding responsibility keeps a person emotionally powerless. A woman of excellence understands that responsibility is not punishment. Responsibility is power because it places the ability to change back into her own hands. The moment a woman takes responsibility for her habits, mindset, decisions, and direction, transformation begins. She stops waiting for someone else to rescue her. She stops expecting perfect conditions before taking action. She realizes that growth begins when excuses end. That level of accountability creates emotional maturity that many people never develop. Personal responsibility also creates discipline. A responsible woman understands that her daily choices shape her future. She no longer lives carelessly with time, energy, money, emotions, or relationships. She begins making intentional decisions because she understands that every action carries consequences. Leadership grows stronger when a woman becomes dependable not only for others, but also for herself. Self-respect and responsibility work together closely. Without self-respect, responsibility feels overwhelming because a woman may secretly believe she is incapable of growth. Without responsibility, self-respect becomes weak, aka because promises are constantly broken. But when a woman values herself enough to take ownership of her life, confidence begins growing naturally. A true leader also understands that influence begins through example. People are rarely inspired only by words. They are inspired by consistency. A woman who lives with discipline, integrity, humility, and emotional control naturally influences the people around her. Her life becomes evidence of her values. Leadership is not forcing others to follow. Leadership is becoming someone others trust and respect because of the way you live. Many women believe leadership belongs only to people in public positions, but leadership exists in everyday life. A woman leads through the energy she brings into her home. She leads through how she treats people during stressful moments. She leads through her standards, decisions, habits, and emotional stability. Every woman influences someone whether she realizes it or not. Personal responsibility also protects a woman from victim thinking. Victim thinking convinces people that they have no control over their future. It keeps them emotionally trapped inside blame, bitterness, and helplessness. But responsible women choose growth even after painful experiences. They refuse to allow disappointment to define the rest of their lives. They focus energy on what can be improved rather than remaining trapped in what cannot be changed. Leadership requires honesty with yourself. A woman of excellence does not constantly avoid her weaknesses or deny areas needing growth. She becomes willing to confront uncomfortable truths about her habits, mindset, emotions, and decisions. That honesty creates self-awareness, and self-awareness creates transformation. Self-respect also influences boundaries. A strong leader understands that constantly sacrificing peace, health, and identity for everyone else eventually leads to exhaustion. She learns how to say no without guilt. She protects her time intently. She understands that leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It is about living with integrity and wisdom consistently. A responsible woman also becomes resilient. Life will always contain setbacks, criticism, delays, and pressure. But instead of collapsing emotionally whenever difficulties appear, she learns how to adapt, learn, and continue moving forward. Responsibility strengthens mental toughness because it teaches a woman to focus on solutions instead of excuses. One of the most powerful things about self-respect is that it changes standards completely. A woman who respects herself deeply no longer settles for mediocrity in her habits, relationships, mindset, or future. She expects more from herself because she understands her potential carries responsibility. Leadership begins long before anyone recognizes it publicly. It begins privately through discipline, honesty, responsibility, and self-respect repeated daily. The strongest women are not always the loudest in the room. Often, they are the women quietly leading themselves with wisdom, integrity, and courage even when nobody is watching. A woman of excellence inspires others without demanding validation because her confidence is rooted in identity, not public approval. She does not spend her life chasing attention, forcing recognition, or depending on constant praise to feel valuable. Her strength comes from within. The way she lives, speaks, carries herself, and treats others naturally creates influence without her needing to constantly announce her worth. Many people confuse influence with visibility. They believe being loud, constantly seen, or endlessly praised is what makes someone powerful. But true inspiration has never depended on attention alone. Some of the strongest women quietly transform the lives around them through consistency, integrity, discipline, wisdom, and emotional stability. Their presence creates impact because people see and feel authenticity in the way they live. Validation can become dangerous when it becomes the foundation of identity. A woman who constantly depends on approval from others eventually loses clarity about who she truly is. She begins shaping herself around opinions instead of values. Her confidence rises and falls depending on how much attention she receives. Over time, emotional exhaustion develops because no amount of external praise can permanently satisfy internal insecurity. A woman of excellence understands this deeply. She no longer builds her worth around temporary reactions from people. She values growth more than applause. She values purpose more than popularity. She values integrity more than image. Because of that, her confidence becomes stable even during seasons where recognition is absent. There is something powerful about a woman who does not need to prove herself constantly. She enters rooms calmly instead of desperately seeking attention. She listens more carefully. She speaks with intention. She remains grounded because her self-respect does not depend on whether everyone approves of her. That quiet confidence often inspires people more deeply than loud performance ever could. Inspiration becomes strongest when it is genuine. Women who constantly seek validation often unintentionally perform for acceptance rather than live authentically. But a woman rooted in excellence does not live for performance. She lives with alignment. Her actions match her values privately and publicly. That consistency builds trust naturally. People are inspired by women who remain disciplined during difficult seasons. They are inspired by women who continue growing without needing applause after every step. They are inspired by women who choose kindness in a harsh world, patience in stressful moments, and integrity when compromise would be easier. Real influence is created through character repeated consistently over time. A powerful woman also understands that value. Eodation is temporary. Public opinion changes constantly. Some people will admire you one day and criticize you the next. If identity depends entirely on approval, emotional stability becomes impossible. But women rooted in self-awareness remain steady because they know who they are beyond external reactions. A woman of excellence also inspires through emotional maturity. She does not compete constantly with other women for attention or recognition. She understands that another woman's success does not threaten her value. Secure women uplift others because confidence removes the need for comparison. That emotional security creates peaceful energy that naturally attracts trust and respect. One of the strongest forms of influence is example. A disciplined woman inspires discipline without forcing it. A calm woman inspires peace without demanding it. A focused woman inspires growth simply through the way she lives daily. People pay attention to consistency more than words. That is why authentic women often influence others deeply without trying to control anyone. Validation-seeking behavior often creates pressure and insecurity. It causes women to constantly monitor how they are perceived instead of focusing on who they are becoming. But a woman of excellence becomes more concerned with inner growth than external image. She asks herself whether her actions align with her values instead of constantly asking whether everyone likes her. There is freedom in no longer needing constant approval. A woman who releases validation dependency becomes emotionally stronger because she no longer allows opinions to control her direction. She can grow quietly. She can work patiently. She can improve privately without needing the world to celebrate every step. That freedom creates peace many people never experience. A woman of excellence also understands that true inspiration comes from service and impact, not ego. She focuses on becoming valuable instead of becoming admired. She encourages others genuinely. She leads through humility rather than superiority. She understands that influence becomes meaningful when it helps people grow instead of simply attracting attention. Over time, women who live this way leave a lasting impact on the people around them. Their calmness inspires confidence. Their discipline inspires growth. Their wisdom inspires change. Their integrity inspires trust. And because they are not desperate for validation, their influence feels authentic rather than performative. The most inspiring women are rarely the ones demanding the world's attention every moment. Often, they are the women quietly building strong character, protecting their peace, remaining consistent with their values, and living with purpose even when nobody is applauding. Their lives speak so loudly that validation becomes unnecessary because excellence itself already creates influence.